Mr. Montanez.
Well, I can't believe I'll say this, but I agree with Mr. Haley.
Be still my heart.
Anyway, and then I think Dick made some great points is, how do we focus the attention on needing to do something on either 6th Street or downtown or both? And that's going to be, for us to decide, I guess, of how we do that and work with the individual property owners. I think we're going to have to do baby steps because councils before us started some of this revitalization. Some of us were on the council when we worked on purchasing some of the property downtown. And then, of course, the recession hit before that was completed. And so I don't think a lot of people see that or know the history of it. And so it does make it hard. And I guess that's really kind of where do you go and where do we ask the residents, how much do you really want to make this happen? Because Ranch Cucamonga is a great example. They had great expanses of dirt owned by one person,
Right.
Where we don't. And that makes it a little bit harder, and that's the part where we have to do the sales job with the residents and decide whether the amount of discomfort is also enough discomfort, whether it's a bond measure, whatever it may be, to get that going, or is everybody happy with, painting some buildings and hopefully removing pennant flags down the street. But I guess your other point too is on the mayor's transition, and until we have an elected mayor that stays in office for a period of time, that is going to be a hard part. Have you seen in other cities ways to, because we're going to go through a transition here in a few months, ways to try to solidify that, to really push those priorities, especially if 6th Street is something that's going to be a 5-year, at very best, maybe 10 or 15-year plan, to have that continue as, say, a goal, but that can't be the far overreaching goal for a year, the next year, or whatever.
None of these things that we have in the strategic plan, none of them can be done in a year, done in one and done. They all have to be long-term commitments. Now, the point of having the document and the body of public input that came along with that is it really doesn't matter who is sitting at the council dais. The facts remain that the residents have expressed a desire for these things to happen. And the real question is how you go about doing that. And it's interesting because there are other communities that are very similar to Corona that have had, I would say, deteriorating downtowns. I can't tell you how many people talked about, like annexation. Why were we annexing when we can't fix what we've got going on down here? I heard it over and over again. So the question really becomes, how creative can you get in revitalization? I think you make a great point in the education factor because people don't understand what happened to the redevelopment funds or those properties. They don't understand what the city owns or what it doesn't. And in many cases, they don't understand the role of the city would play in that revitalization effort. And you're right, it may be something that you have, I would strongly advise that you do at some point community engagement, and whether it's a workshop or event or anything, to really vet some of these ideas and get some input and get some feedback on what's out there and what's viable. Other communities are doing things like trying to solidify number of properties so you can get property owners, make it incentivize combining properties so you have a little bit more to play with in terms of the development side. There are certainly some opportunities out there for sustainable communities, that sort of thing. But in terms of the transition for the council, in other communities, I think what we've found is that when you have a good plan that's well thought out, and when, again, individual items that come before the council, you still may go 3-2 or 4-1 or 5-0. That may happen, and that's fine. It's the big picture that you're trying to get people to buy in on, and I would hope that would continue. I can tell you I've also spoken with most of the folks that I believe are going to be running for office, and they've all kind of said the same thing as well. So I don't know that there's anybody out there that would disagree that these are bad priorities for the city to have.
Well, and I don't disagree that they're not great priorities, because obviously we sat in on them and helped craft them. It's ironic you said that about the annexation, because some of the worst property in downtown is owned by some of the people that are in the annexation area.
It's not lost on me. definitely had that conversation.
Anyway, thank you.
My pleasure.